We all have those stories that never leave us. Those few that are so cloaked in mystery and conflicting clues that we just can't stop thinking about them. Where every theory speculated just leads to more questions. This is one of those stories for me. Let's talk about Joan Risch. This was the first article I posted on my blog. That should tell you something. This case is never far from my mind. It just doesn't make any sense, and I think of it often. I think the fact that there are pictures from that day widely circulated on the internet just helped visualize even more how bizarre the scene of this mystery was. She literally vanished over 62 years ago. Joan was the last person you would think would be involved in an unsolved mystery. She was born Joan Carolyn Bard on August 4th, 1930, in Brooklyn, New York. When she was 9, her parents were killed in a house fire. She was sent to live with her aunt and uncle, where she was formally adopted and became Joan Nattrass. She graduated in 1952 from Wilson College in Chambersburg, Pennsylvania, with a degree in English and accepted a job in publishing at Crowell Collier Publishing. She eventually met Martin Risch, and they married in 1955. Soon after, Jean quit her job and they began a family, and by 1961, they had 4-year-old Lillian and 2-year-old David. Martin Risch worked as an executive at Fitchburg Paper Company. The Risches had moved to Lincoln, Massachusetts in April of 1961, and by all accounts were a happy family. Joan was in a good place in her life. The morning of Tuesday, October 24th, 1961, started like any other day. Martin had a business trip, so he left for Logan Airport around 6:50 a.m. to catch a flight to New York City. He said Joan was still in bed when he left. Little did he know it was the last time he would ever see his wife. Joan ran some errands that morning. She went to the dentist, including making a follow-up appointment for a week later, did a little clothes and grocery shopping, and by around 11:15 a.m., she was back home and cooked lunch for her children. There has been a lot of varying stories of the events of that day, but this is taken from Joan's friend and neighbor, Barbara Barker's actual statement to police.
I saw Joan this morning. I took care of her 2-year-old son while she went to the dentist at Bedford. She brought the baby over about 9:30 a.m. and came back about 10:55 a.m. She then took her children home. My 4-year-old son Douglas went over to the Risch home to play with Lillian. When Doug came back, he said that they played outside. Joan was cutting the grass in the back. That afternoon, her 4-year-old daughter came over after saying that she had permission from her mother to come to my house. I saw Joan about 2:30. I saw her run beside her car. She had a trench coat on at the time. I saw something red. I thought that she was chasing a child, and the child was wearing a red jacket. She was running with her arms outstretched. Later, I saw her walking back towards the house. It seemed to me that when she ran to the car, she went back to the house again. I did see something red. This was about 2:15 p.m. I took 4-year-old Lillian across the street about 3:45 p.m. Then I went to Concord to do some shopping. I came back about 4:15. Lily came in and said that I can't find Mommy. David's in bed and the place is messed up.
That appears to be the last verified sighting of Joan Risch, which was around 2:15 p.m. What happened in the next 2 hours is perhaps the biggest mystery of all. When Lillian told Barbara Barker about her mother being missing, she hurried over to the house and was alarmed by what she observed. She quickly went to the nursery to get the baby, brought both of Joan's children to a neighbor, and called the police. Sergeant Michael McHugh of Lincoln Police Department received her call around 4:30 p.m. and arrived at the Risch home in less than 5 minutes. He entered through the side door and found himself in the kitchen. The scene was chilling. This is the description of the kitchen according to Police Chief Algia's observation. There was blood on the kitchen floor, later estimated to be about half a pint. There were bloodstains on the wall near the telephone, on the door frame leading to the dining room, and on the telephone box. The handset of the telephone had been pulled off where it connected to the wall box. The wastebasket, normally kept under the sink in a cabinet, was sitting in the middle of the kitchen floor. The basket was full, and the mouthpiece of the telephone was hung on the edge. The blood on the floor was dry, except for 2 or 3 spots where there was a pool of blood, and this was not entirely dry. There was a pair of child's corduroy overalls on the kitchen stool, and these appeared to have blood on them, as did a pair of child's underpants that were on the kitchen floor. A small table was on its side in the hallway leading to the living room, and it was later established that the table stood in the kitchen under the telephone. An apron was on the floor in the hallway just beyond the table, as was a local telephone directory, which was found open to emergency numbers. There was no other furniture upset, and the whole house, except the kitchen, appeared to be in order. There are also reports that drops of blood extended to the nursery by the baby's bed, back to the kitchen again, and down the steps to the walk, then leading to Joan's car, which still sat in the driveway. There was blood on the trunk of the Risch's vehicle as well, and there was also a wire hanger found on the top of the car. Joan's trench coat and purse were located inside the residence, but her cloth coat was gone. I will add that if you go to my website, Lost and Found Blogs, and search for the article Into Thin Air, I have pictures of the kitchen seen that day. I had a friend of mine colorize the areas of blood for clarification. In this case, I think it's important to see the actual photos taken that day, as it is something we don't usually get in missing persons cases. There was also a few disturbing clues aside from the blood left at the Risch's kitchen. It appeared that someone had attempted to clean up the blood. There were paper towels on the floor, and blood from the floor had been smeared, and it even appeared that David's clothing had been used to attempt in the cleanup. Also strangely missing in the kitchen was an absence of any footprints in the blood. Martin Risch was notified of his wife's disappearance and took a flight back to Massachusetts, where he was questioned by police. He was quickly eliminated as a suspect due to his being in New York when Joan went missing. The police orchestrated a full-scale ground and helicopter search for Joan, but she could not be located. Several people did come forward with sightings of a woman who matched Joan's appearance walking along a nearby highway, Route 128, which was in the process of being constructed. Here are the descriptions of the sightings as reported in the police file. About 2:45 p.m. on that day, a woman described as in her early 30s, wearing a loose-fitting gray coat that came to her knees or a little above, was observed walking with the flow of traffic at the side of the road on Route 2A in Lincoln in the direction of Concord, about 200 yards beyond Old Bedford Road, Lincoln. This woman appeared to be walking aimlessly, shuffling along and hunched over as though she were cold. She seemed untidy in her appearance. Number 2, between 3:15 and 3:30 p.m. on that day, a woman described as in her early 30s, wearing a loose-fitting either charcoal gray or navy blue coat with a heavy concentration of blood streaming down both legs, front and rear, was seen walking in a northerly direction on the grass center strip on Route 128 in Waltham, just north of the Charterhouse Motel, beyond the Winter Street cutoff, walking in a plodding manner with her head down. Her hands were cradled to her stomach as though carrying something, and her general appearance was untidy. Number 3, about 4:25 p.m. on that day, a woman described as about 35 years of age, wearing a grayish-colored coat that came to her knees, was observed walking with the flow of traffic in a southerly direction at the edge of the roadway on Route 128, about midway between the Trapelo Road cutoff and the Trapelo Road overpass. This woman's legs, both front and rear, were covered with what appeared to be blotches of brownish-colored mud. She walked with her head pitched forward and had both hands in her pockets. The woman in these sightings appeared to be in distress, yet no one is reported to have stopped and offered her assistance. There were also rumors of Joan possibly succumbing to a botched home abortion, but there is no real evidence to support this theory. Joan's husband stated that if his wife were pregnant, she would have been happy about it, so he didn't agree with that scenario. There was also a theory that possibly Joan had suffered from a medical emergency, such as an accident or a hemorrhage, which would explain the blood loss and possibly even the sighting of the woman who may have been Joan. The amount of blood found at the scene was not enough to signify a life-threatening situation, when Joan was in the kitchen anyway. Another interesting fact reported in the newspapers near the time Joan went missing was that in early November, just a few weeks after Joan went missing, an unknown woman called the Risch home at least a dozen times. At the time, Martin Risch's parents were staying at the Risch home to help Martin care for the children. Martin's father answered the phone, but the caller refused to speak with him. On the same day as some of the phone calls to the Risch home, one of the neighbors received a phone call from a very excited woman who complained she had been trying to call her home but hadn't been able to get a hold of anyone she knew. Could this caller possibly have been Joan? There were also a few neighbors who reported a mid-1950s blue Chevy in the Risch driveway in mid-afternoon on the day Joan went missing. The time the vehicle may or may not have been there is in dispute, and police believe it was an unmarked police car and that the time witnesses observed the car in the driveway was incorrect. More than a year after Joan vanished, some new information emerged that gave investigators a possible new theory. A reporter named Serene Gerson for the Fence Viewer decided to investigate Joan's reading habits by compiling the books taken from the library from the Risch's family library card. She discovered that in the summer prior to Joan's disappearance, she had taken out 25 library books, and nearly all of them seemed to be focused on missing persons and even people staging their own disappearance. One of them is Into Thin Air by British author Harry Carmichael. It is reported that Joan's disappearance mirrored the book, leading some to believe she used it as a map to guide her disappearance. The Boston Globe even interviewed the author in 1964, and his theory was that he suspected Joan Risch was alive living somewhere between Boston and New York. This was purely speculative on his part, of course, but this gave a possible new angle on Joan's missing persons case. Could Joan have staged her own disappearance? Were the books she selected just an innocent choice of someone who enjoyed reading about missing persons, or were they perhaps used as research for something Joan had been planning? So here we have four theories which are wildly ranging. Joan had arranged an illegal abortion and had suffered a life-threatening complication, causing her to lose blood, panic, and flee. Joan was reading up on missing persons books in order to formulate her own plan to withdraw from her life and arranged a bloody scene to throw people off the trail. Joan came into her house that afternoon and surprised an intruder, and a struggle in the kitchen ensued where the perpetrator took Joan with them in their car and she eventually met with foul play. There were some reports that there may have been a bloody fingerprint that was unidentified in the kitchen, but there was conflicting information about this in the past newspaper articles on the case. Joan suffered from some unexpected and random medical emergency where she was losing blood and, while disoriented, took off on foot, disappearing. No matter which theory you lean towards, no one scenario makes perfect sense. This is what makes her disappearance so baffling and so sad, as a young family was broken apart that October day. Martin Risch never really wanted to discuss the case of his missing wife in the years after her disappearance. He constantly held on to the belief that his wife was still alive and that she was suffering from amnesia. Right up until his death in 2009, he had kept the same phone number in case his wife decided to call him. I did reach out to Joan's friend whom she had spoken with the day before she went missing back in 2019 when I was researching for my article. She said she really didn't have anything more to add, but did direct me to an interview she did for the Boston Globe around 1971. She did tell me that she has hated all those false speculations surrounding her friend's disappearance over the years. Now it's time to bring in a colleague of mine to further discuss this mystery. I am pleased to have on this podcast Anthony Wayne, Those of you who don't know him by that name will definitely recognize his blog, as he goes by Crime Blogger 1983. He has been a great support for me in my years of having my blog as well as my podcast, as I have for him. Welcome, Anthony.
Well, thanks for having me on, and you're really nice. Thanks for that compliment.
Oh, no problem. So we've been friends for a few years now, and of course we have the same passion for bringing attention to these cases. I wanted to have you on my podcast anyway, but I chose this specific case because you have actually thoroughly researched and written about it as well. So tell me about your research into the Joan Risch case and how deep you dug into it.
Well, she's one of my pet cases, her and Amy and Evelyn Hartley. So she's one of the reasons I started doing this work, just because it's such a mysterious case. I plugged away lots of hours on her, trying to track down leads and stuff. So I've got like over 100 pages.
Oh, wow.
So it's borderline obsession. So
yeah, it's a case once you hear about it, you just can't stop thinking about it.
Oh, I've had dreams about it. Yeah, it's one of those ones that you can't let go.
Yeah, for sure. So what are your theories more? Of course, I've already pretty much explained the story and everything and going through some of the theories. So what is your opinion on what the most possible scenario was that day?
Well, if somebody was visiting her, there's no doubt about that, because that car that they noticed at the residence, and somebody had been visiting her when her husband wasn't there. So
yeah,
I think somebody was present with her, obviously. But in terms of I don't think that it was anything with. I don't think anybody was trying to hurt her. From the bloodstains and stuff, it looks like there was a hemorrhage. Somebody may have punched her in the nose and she may have been bleeding.
Yeah.
But I don't know if it was. It doesn't look like to me like it was foul play oriented to me. I don't think that. A lot of things still don't make sense about it. I don't know why she would leave her kid in the crib, and if somebody was there, why they would do that. And then you have to go with what the police say at the time. They seem to change their tune a lot over the investigation. But one of the quotes was that they don't believe the people involved were telling everything they knew about the case. So that made me think a little bit about what did the Barkers know. But it's still very interesting. I mean, I don't know if I think she may have been having an affair, but I can't nail that down yet. I don't know. I really don't have a theory right off. I think it could have been. I mean, them leaving the boy in the crib just does not make any sense to me.
Yeah, it's like any theory you could poke holes in, and and I don't think we'll ever know. I mean, even if we could find her remains, we're not going to have any idea what happened that day.
No, and it's usually the simpler solution too. It's usually just like if you got a few. That's what I feel like when I look over this stuff. I looked over this stuff so many times I don't even have to look over it anymore in my notes because I know it by heart. But I think they're just missing a few small details that would make it, that would fit, that would add up and make everything make sense. That's what it seems, and they're just probably minor ones.
Yeah,
that would make everything that makes sense. Like I know that. I'm sure you know that she was molested as a child by her stepdad / uncle, apparently.
Yeah.
That was the rumor anyway.
Yeah.
And the calls to the neighbors, which was weird. And you're like, well, those are just prank calls. But then somebody called her aunt Flossie, and nobody called her Flossie except for Martin, her husband, and Joan. So you had to know somebody knew personal details like that, so that's awfully strange. And then you have the sighting of a person with what looked like blood running down her legs.
Yeah.
And I mean, the car is the interesting thing. I wish somebody would have wrote down the license plate number. That would have been the key right there.
Yeah, and it seemed like some people saw it, but then they said, oh, they were probably mistaken about when they saw it or the day. And they really just dismissed the car at the beginning. But then more people seem to have reported seeing it even in the days prior to this.
Well, even the kid that got off the bus, that Virginia King, she was a neighbor. She got off the school bus and walked by, and she saw the car there at the edge of the driveway. So the car, I'm sure, was there because it was that same day. But then you see the statements by Mrs. Barker saying that I know there was a lot of foliage blocking her view of the Risch home. But she
Yeah.
said she was able to see Miss Risch. Looked like she was chasing something that was red or something. So she said she was chasing a child. But does that mean that she had a nosebleed or something? It looked like
Yeah.
she had a hemorrhage. So I don't know whether she was. But still, whose car was there? I mean, and it says it looked like somebody drove the car up to the porch and then sped off because they had to have had damage under the undercarriage of the car because it scraped the bottom of the car on the step of the porch, I think it was.
Oh, wow.
So somebody drove up real close, and I don't think she would have been driving. I mean, if she's bleeding like that.
Yeah. Well, Barbara Barker's statement is confusing because doesn't she say that Joan was mowing?
Oh, yeah, she was mowing, yeah.
And
yeah,
then it talks about
change.
blood, but I'm sure they checked the mower to see that there wasn't any kind of mowing accident.
Right. And all the blood seemed to be, it seemed like there was blood from it started upstairs, whatever happened. It started upstairs, it came all the way downstairs and into the kitchen, and it got worse. They said they found some drops and blood in the top of in the bedroom upstairs. And coming downstairs, there was little traces, and then in the kitchen is where it started to come out.
Well, it's interesting you say that because I guess at first I thought maybe it happened in the kitchen and then she went up to like check on her son. Oh, he's okay. Then she went to do whatever. But I wondered if she was trying to call for help because maybe she's the one that opened the phone book to call, whatever had happened. It seemed like she was really panicked for sure.
True. Yeah, there's lots of emergency numbers there, though. I think that kind of makes me think somebody else was there that might have been trying to call.
Yeah.
There's a list of emergency numbers by the phone that they could have called right there, but instead they opened the phone book.
And another thing, too, back then there was like delivery people, her cleaning and her milk and everything. And I'd wondered if maybe there was one of the delivery people kind of, had his sights on her and he would have known that her husband was gone traveling a lot. But I don't know that he would have had a regular car.
Right. And yeah, that's true. And then I guess that one of the delivery men said that she'd always talk to him and she was always very friendly. So that's also a possibility.
Yeah.
But then there was also a lady that had been earlier that month, I guess, had been, I have to go through my notes. This one I don't remember right off, but she had been accosted near that house.
Oh, wow.
By somebody that they never caught. I have to go back and find it in my bunch of notes here somewhere. But yeah, Barbara Barker is interesting because her statement seems to change slightly, and it seems to it's different. There's a little bit of changes in it every now and then when you read it. So, and she seemed to I don't know if you got this impression, but if you go back and look at pictures from the time, every now and then you'll see the eBay pictures of her, like the old pictures, crime photos, and you'll see her retrace it. It seems like she was soaking up the attention a lot. I don't know if you got that impression from her or not, but I don't know. That's what I got, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, that's interesting. And do you think that she was the one seen leaving, walking down the road?
Well,
do you think that was Joan?
Supposedly. It could have been, but I don't know where she would have been going. And then plus they said that it looked like the car was down on the edge of the road, so it may have dropped her off, but who would do that?
Yeah. I mean, I guess the first thought was she was in a panic and left on foot. I mean, if it was something bad enough, she wouldn't want her daughter to see her. But I mean, to leave that 2-year-old in that big house by himself. But
yeah, that's the part that doesn't really make sense at all. And plus, I know that it was a different time and all.
Yeah.
But when she dropped Mrs. Barker walked Lillian across the road and let her off in the driveway. She didn't go in and tell her that, maybe it's just a different time and era, but you think that she would have hey, Joan, Lillian's back here. I just dropped her off. But she didn't. She just dropped her off at the edge of the driveway.
Yeah.
But, I don't know. That could be just different times, I suppose.
And, we talk about, did she have amnesia? And I wanted to bring this up. And this is, of course, not related to Joan's disappearance. But this really gave me pause because, and I looked on the newspaper articles, in 2017, Joan's son, David Risch, went missing. He went missing for a week and he was found. But what caught my attention was he was only 58 years old and he was living in a nursing home and he suffered from serious memory impairment.
Yeah.
And when the police approached him, he gave them the wrong name. I don't know if he was purposely, But that kind of made me wonder, okay, 58 is very young to be in a nursing home with serious memory impairment.
Also, he went missing on the anniversary of his mom's disappearance.
Oh, you're kidding. Wow.
No,
Wow.
yeah, that was the anniversary, I remember.
And so that just made you wonder. I mean, I don't think, the dementia and everything is necessarily hereditary, but it just gave me pause considering his mother goes missing into thin air. And now, David has a memory impairment and they don't come out and say that it's dementia or Alzheimer's. It just mentioned serious memory impairment.
Right. Yeah, that was definitely interesting. Caught my eye. I remember that.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's related either, but it's definitely something you want to think about. If there was some kind of mental illness in the family, I don't know. Like you said, I don't know. I'm not a doctor, so I don't know if it would be hereditary or not. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But it's definitely interesting. Going over my notes here, they look like they did find a couple of cars that were similar, but they were cleared of any involvement. But the car that was in question was a two-tone blue and gray sedan that was parked along Route 2A that was similar in description to the one that was in Joan Risch's driveway. A Harold Munder and a Bernard Socket, and they were both clear of any involvement.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah, I don't know where that one note is. My notes are everywhere. But the one where the lady was accosted and they didn't find out who it was, I don't know if that's related as well. But
yeah,
there was supposed to be another lady that was possibly in the area that was walking a dog or something, or had her daughter with her. They were trying to figure out who she was and if they could, because she would know to be in the area, but they never figured out who she was. So that's another potential witness at the time.
Yeah.
I never thought that her husband had anything to do with this. They did at one point, but I never did.
No, and they said that I think he eventually sold his house to like some kind of preservation, organization, but they said he would never change his phone number and he never remarried.
Yeah, I tried to find that house too. I never could end up tracking it down. I wondered where it went. I heard it went somewhere in Tennessee, but that's all as much as I could figure out. I'd like to see it.
Yeah,
if it's still around, but I mean, not like there'd be any evidentiary value to it, but it'd be cool to see.
Yeah. Okay, as we wrap this up, Anthony, do you have anything in the future you want to talk about? I mean, you're still doing entries in the blog, correct?
Yeah, I'm on Newsbreak.
Oh, okay.
Newsbreak, I'm on a couple others, I forget. I've got so many. But my main blog is crimeblogger1983.blogspot.com. I'll probably be coming out with a podcast soon.
Great.
I have a couple podcast interviews too that'll be coming out soon, but I'll put them on my Facebook page for everybody to see.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you do great work and you're very passionate. And honestly, if I had a missing person in my family, Anthony, you'd be the one that I would go to.
Oh, that's sweet. I appreciate it.
Because I know you really put your heart and soul into these cases.
Well, you do the same thing. Don't cut yourself short, because I admire your work, and you've been a great friend. All the things I've been through the past couple of years, you've always been right there helping me out, and I really appreciate it.
Oh, of course. Great okay, friends. Anthony. Well, take care, and we will be hearing from you soon.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
I also wanted to mention that there was a book published about Joan's disappearance in 2020 titled A Kitchen Painted in Blood by Stephen Ahern. A few things he talked about that I didn't mention in my original article was Joan's stepfather. He stated that Joan had told her husband and many friends that she had been abused by her stepfather in some way. The exact details are unclear. Joan and her family were trying to persuade her mother to leave him and take their young daughter to live with Joan's brother. He was said to have an alibi on the day Joan disappeared, but the possible theory was that he would have had a motive to want revenge on Joan for talking about her past abuse and trying to get his wife to leave him. The author did seem to talk about more definite accounts of neighbors seeing this mystery car the day of the disappearance. It was sitting in the Risch driveway. So there you have the facts on the tragic disappearance of Joan Risch. I will give my opinion on what I think is one of the most logical scenarios in this case. I tend to think that Joan suffered some random medical emergency without warning that afternoon. Her morning was typical for her, and by all accounts, Joan seemed to act perfectly normal and went about her usual routine. Her behavior wasn't called into question until around 2 that afternoon. Her somewhat odd behavior, noted by her neighbor Barbara Barker, possibly carrying something red. I think the red that was observed could have been Joan's blood, possibly on her outstretched hands or her clothing, which is why Mrs. Barker only seemed to see a quick glimpse of it. Is there a chance Joan had an accident with the lawnmower? Mrs. Barker said she was mowing shortly before her disappearance. I would think if they checked her lawnmower, it would indicate if there had been a mishap. Could Joan have had a hemorrhage? This is the one theory that, in my opinion, makes the most sense. Possibly after putting David down for his nap, she starts experiencing some medical problem. Possibly severe pain and bleeding, which could have even been a miscarriage. She doubles over in pain and is bleeding and staggers into the kitchen, knocking over the table that was normally kept under the telephone. She opens the phone book to the emergency numbers and is about to place a call when she either leans over in pain or perhaps falls with the phone in her hand, ripping it loose from the base. With the phone no longer in order, she places it on the side of the garbage can and attempts a quick cleanup and stumbles out of the house. Someone matching her description is seen around this time frame on the road near her house and is seen with blood on her legs after Joan had just left blood in her kitchen and on her car. The blood on her legs could also explain a hemorrhage and or a miscarriage. As I said, no one theory in this case makes perfect sense, so I do question why Joan wouldn't go to her neighbor Barbara Barker's for help. Two reasons come to my mind. First off, she knew her daughter Lillian was over there and didn't want her daughter to see her in that condition and to see the blood. Second, Joan could have been disoriented due to blood loss and extreme pain and wasn't thinking clearly and just wandered off. Also, Joan didn't take her car. Why? If she was in extreme pain due to some sort of medical emergency or injury, perhaps she wasn't physically able to drive the car. What is strange is that she's never been located. Is it possible someone did pick her up in that vulnerable state and she did ultimately meet with foul play and was buried or disposed of? Did Joan wander into the woods and succumb eventually to blood loss or a medical emergency? Is there any possibility that Joan, like her husband hoped, did survive that day and developed amnesia? Could she have been the one who phoned her house and her neighbor's house a few weeks after her disappearance? Like I said, this is one of the most baffling missing persons cases I have ever heard about. There have been so many different theories over the years, yet no new clues and still no trace of Joan Risch has ever been found. She literally did vanish into thin air. That concludes the podcast on Joan Risch. If you enjoyed it, please leave a rating or review on your favorite podcast app. You can find me on Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. It is one word, Lost and Found Podcast. I post a new episode every 2 weeks. You can also reach me at lostandfoundpodcast@yahoo. And remember that cold cases stay cold because their story stops getting told.